the Oxford medical applications, and there's also been the US early decision applications as well. So it's been a crazy couple of months, and Diwali is always in the middle of the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So thanks everyone for joining. I'm just going to give it a couple more minutes. I can see the number of participants increasing. Priya and I are really excited to discuss, how to write an effective personal statement with you today. We'll introduce ourselves in a moment and we'll get started. So thank you. Just give us, I think, another couple more minutes and, we'll definitely get started. So Priya, I'm sure you're seeing an increase of applications from India, right? I mean, there's so much interest in the UK since they started the 2-year work visa. They've reintroduced that after Brexit, right?
Yes, after Brexit, and the faith that parents have in sending their kids to the UK, and students are so much aware about the work visa and so much aware about what kinds of jobs and all, which I'm really in awe of their intelligence and their awareness at the moment. And yes, we have the applications from India, in fact, the Indian subcontinent has increased a lot as compared to pre-Brexit era, or even, at the time of COVID. The UK became very popular because of this, because of Brexit, and because introducing 2-year work visa that happened last year. So it has become very popular. And it is obviously, when we talk about, the new changes in UK, which is good changes as far as the UK politics is concerned, or as far as, the other things are concerned. Students are really now focusing on UK as a study destination. A lot of changes. It's an open, place where you will be taken care of, you will be nourished. So yeah, that's how it is.
I think so. I mean, really, UK has been in the limelight for, the last, definitely the last few weeks with the British politics. There's been so much happening on that front. Okay, well, on that note, let's get started. Thank you everyone for joining us this evening. If you're in India and if you are in another place in the world, thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to be speaking about the UK personal statement, which is an integral part of the UK application process for undergraduate students. And that's what we're going to spend the next 1 hour doing. I encourage any of you to put any questions that you have in the Q&A box, and Priya and I will address them. So just a quick flow of events. I'm going to speak about the UK personal statement for about 20 to 25 minutes. Priya is then going to speak a little bit about the personal statement and Essex from an admissions perspective for another 10 to 15 minutes, and then we're going to have a Q&A. So we will certainly answer your questions. No question is silly, so please put it in the box. We're happy, today's session is really about answering a question so that you know how to write this personal statement, okay? And I've got some great examples for you as well. Okay, so before we get started, I'll quickly introduce myself. My name is Namita Mehta, and I'm the president of the Red Pen, which is an independent education consulting firm. I'll tell you a little bit more about my company in a minute. But I myself am a graduate from UK University. I went to boarding school in the UK for 2 years where I studied the A-levels, and then I went on to study molecular and cellular biochemistry at the University of Oxford. So exactly around 20 years ago, I was writing my personal statement. So I have been in your shoes or in your children's shoes. So, I know how you feel. I have been in the education space for over 15 years and, been working on one-on-one with students who are interested in the global admissions landscape. So helping them identify their best fit college wherever they want to go. So really excited to tell you today about how to write this personal statement and answer your questions. Priya, let me hand it to you and then we can get started.
Sure. So hi, everyone. My name is Priya Gidwani. I've been working as a student recruitment advisor with the University of Essex. I've interacted with a lot of students and supported them, throughout. So if you have any questions regarding, obviously, personal statement, but in case you're really confused about which career to choose, which program should I look forward to, or, oh my God, I'm interested in acting. Is there a course in that? All of these confusions, I can help you with that. So that's what I have been doing for 9+ years now. And so that's pretty much about me. University of Essex is a public university of UK. It is based in Colchester, England, and I am working with the university. So by the end of this presentation, after we've helped you out about your personal statement, I might, if you have any questions regarding the university, you can feel free to type in your questions about the programs and I can take care of it.
Thank you so much, Priya. So a little bit, before we get started, a little bit about the Red Pen, which is the company that I run. We provide end-to-end services for students at all rungs of the education ladder. We like to say pregnancy to PhD. We really do work with students and families at all levels. Pre-college advising is where we work with students from grades 8 to 10, so year 9 to 11, to help them kind of think about the higher education landscape and work toward a particular goal. So we kind of help with academic discussions, academic trajectory, curriculum and subject selection, and extracurricular development. Day and boarding school admissions is pretty straightforward. We work with families looking to identify boarding schools within India or internationally for their families. Undergraduate admissions, MBA admissions, and postgrad admissions, as the name suggests, we hold your hand through the process, help you kind of identify the right colleges based on your profile and your long-term goals, and then help you with the whole process. So identifying the colleges, the editing and brainstorming for the essays that might come up. So personal statement, if you're looking at the UK, any letter of recommendation strategy to form filling, we just kind of help you with the whole process, and of course, counseling. And institutional support is something else we ventured into, and that involves us working directly with high schools who need counseling services, and we work with them in different capacities. Some high schools have hired us in its entirety to kind of manage the counseling department, while other high schools kind of ask us to come in for certain kind of workshops. So whether it's helping teachers to write letters of recommendation, all the way to doing boot camp style workshops for their students. So that's us in a nutshell. We've been around for over 11 years now, and you can see some of the data points. We've had about 92% of our students have received offers from top 3 universities that they've looked at. We really do understand that international education can get expensive, so we work with families to ensure that they get the financial aid that they require through scholarships or merit aid. And you can see that our students have been pretty successful here. And we really do look at the best fit models. So, students, we understand the global landscape and within India as well. So if students are looking at, staying within India or looking internationally to the UK, of course, US, Canada, Southeast Asia, Australia, we're happy to help. And also, like, Priya mentioned, if you're interested in acting or if you have, a particular interest that you'd like to pursue at the university level, we're happy to kind of help you with that application as well. So that's us in a nutshell.
That's great.
All right, let's move on to the UK personal statement. All right, so before I kind of delve into the personal statement, I want to explain a little bit about the UK admissions process. And you can see that we've got this pyramid here. The base of the pyramid is the most important aspect when you apply to a UK university. So your grade 12 predicted grades are crucial. Your grade 10 board results, if you are in a curriculum that has that, if you've done the IGCSEs or if you've done the ICSE, those results are very important. And then also the required subjects for the particular program that you're applying to. So in the UK, you apply into a particular major or course. And for every university, they list all the undergraduate majors that they offer. And then if you click on that, they tell you, it basically tells you what you're going to be doing in year 1, year 2, year 3. And if your program has 4 years, what you're going to be doing in year 4. And then there's a tab called minimum entry requirement. So that essentially is that, look, if for someone to be considered for this particular course, we require them to have a certain kind of academic caliber. Now, UK universities do this because they want to ensure that you're going to be successful, right? I mean, they don't want students who aren't necessarily very, very good at, say, maths to kind of join an economics program, because the professor's not going to wait. And the day that you start, they expect a certain level of ability. So your data is essentially kind of the base of your application. And then, you kind of start building up on that. So once you've realized that you are a fit in terms of the academic requirements for the university, that's when, your personal statement, the teacher or counselor recommendation, the application form, and then like a fit in terms of your personal preferences start mattering, okay? So I'm not going to speak more about the data today. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the personal statement. I'm assuming that this is kind of taken care of. You know that you've got a high predicted grade. If you're in the IB and you're looking at LSC, they're pretty much looking for, 40 and above in the IB, or if you're looking at, if you're looking at a business program at, say, Nottingham, they're really looking for a 37 and above. So as long as that is taken care of, that's when the personal statement starts mattering, okay? So now, why is the personal statement important, right? I mean, a lot of questions, sometimes, students have asked me, do university admissions folk actually read this? Why is it important? So again, like I mentioned to you, the UK admissions process is a little black and white. They actually tell you a minimum entry requirement, so you know whether you're going to be eligible for a program or not. So you need to assume that everyone who's applying for your course at your university is pretty much going to fill the data requirement. They're going to have the grades. So how are you going to stand out in this process, right? So this is kind of where the personal statement is going to be really important. What you write in your personal statement is going to be reviewed, and then that's what's going to also help the admissions teams decide whether they want to give you an offer or not. And really the personal statement can be a big difference, can really kind of distinguish a successful and an unsuccessful application. In fact, you know, the LSE, the London School of Politics and Economics, for students that are unsuccessful, sometimes they give reasons. And sometimes the reasons are your personal statement was not up to the mark. They'll actually send an email to say that. It is also an opportunity for you to tell the university about your character, your interests, and what skills you've developed through high school. It's not just, you know, otherwise the UCAS form is all about what data, what activity you might have done. It's just a data kind of an interpretation in terms of data. The personal statement brings you alive, okay? That's what it's for as well. And it also gives the, you know, the admissions committee an idea of whether you're going to be able to kind of succeed academically or not, okay? And they just want evidence that you're going to be a well-prepared, knowledgeable, and enthusiastic student, because unlike the US, where you can change your major and there's flexibility to what you want to study, unfortunately, that it does the education system in the UK is very different. Once you decide you want to study a particular major, you're doing that for 3 years. And then if you decide a year later, I don't really like this, you kind of have to apply all over again. And of course, universities don't want that, right? So they really want to make sure that you know what you want to do, and a way for them to do that is for you to write a very effective personal statement and demonstrate to them that, hey, I've done my research, I know what I want to do, and kind of, you know, communicate it to them through that kind of means. So these are some of the questions that you should ask yourself before you start writing. So who are you? Why are you pursuing this course, right? What have you done academically to support you with this course? What are your interests and extracurricular activities? Do you have any work experience to talk about, any core skills? And then, you know, end it with a conclusion. I'll be going through each of these paragraph by paragraph and giving you examples of what is going to work and what's not going to work. But just a little bit about the length of the personal statement. So it's a 4,000 character statement. It's 47 lines. It's approximately 600 words. So that's essentially one side of A4. Okay, so a space is counted as a character on the UCAS account. So remember that. You know, there have been students in the past who I've known who've not really kind of stuck to this 4,000 characters, and they kind of try and put all the words together, and that's called academic dishonesty. So please don't do that. Universities have come back and said, no, it is 4,000 characters, to stick to that, and a space is a character. And you know, you primarily need to talk about why you want to study that particular course or major for 70% of the application, and then bring in your skills as well for the rest. Now, like I mentioned, the main reason for this personal statement is to really justify and demonstrate to the university that you're sure you know what you want to study, and that through high school, you've developed these skills that are going to make you a very good candidate to study that particular course. So this is an interesting quote that I got from UCAS. The quality of your writing reflects the quality of your thinking, right? So just remember that when you're writing the personal statement. Show knowledge of what the course involves, but don't aim it at academics only. It's not like you don't have to kind of write a synopsis of everything you've done academically. I mean, there's ample space on the UCAS form for you to do that. Your teacher will probably write enough in your recommendation letter as well. And keep it simple and direct. This is not a creative prose that they're looking for. They're not looking to see whether you have fabulous, fancy English. This is not a literary analysis. This is really about why you think you're going to be a good fit for this program. So stick to the point, use direct sentences, and kind of, get your message out quickly through that. And of course, this goes without saying that, you know, it's very, very tempting to look at friends, other people's personal statements, and, you know, try and kind of look at those and maybe, you know, copy, not necessarily copy, but, you know, use that as a kind of framework, but just avoid doing that. Hopefully after today's presentation, you'll have enough kind of confidence to write it on your own. So just kind of write it out, and don't spend too much time. Don't procrastinate starting because you're like, oh, I'm not going to have a perfect starting paragraph. You can always come back and edit that later, but just kind of get your information out. Okay. So just quickly, what to include in opening paragraph: work experience and personal skills, personal qualities and achievements, and then any outside interests. So these are the 4 main areas, and it's all about quality over quantity. So remember that. So let's talk a little bit about your personality, right? So the opening statement is about introducing yourself. And it really, in the first paragraph, I should know which course you're applying for, and I should know why you're applying for that particular major, okay? And it should really grab my attention. It shouldn't make me guess. By the end of the first paragraph, I should know, okay, yep, this girl is looking at medicine, or yep, she wants to apply for business and management. So keep that in mind, okay? Now I've given you a couple of examples over here. 2 medical student applications below. You can see that, if you look at the first example, from an early age, I've been fascinated by the workings of life. The human body is a remarkable machine with many diverse systems. I am intrigued to know more about the machines that make up such a complex life form, versus something else, okay? Versus something a little bit more personal, a little bit more touching. I made my way to Hillary's house after hearing about her alcoholic father's incarceration. Seeing her tearfulness and at a loss of words, I took her hand and held it, hoping to make things more bearable. She squeezed back gently and replied, "Thank you." My silent gesture seemed to confer a soundless message of comfort, encouragement, and support. That shows so many more aspects about your personality. And if you've kind of been able to tell me about this particular incident, and then you tell me how you want to kind of go on to study medicine, that's a lot more impactful than just kind of telling me that you are interested in the human body. So this kind of goes back to show, don't tell. Rather than just tell me you're interested in the human body, show me that you're interested in the human body. Okay, so that's just an example that I wanted to share with you. Now, when it comes to why this particular course, remember to be honest. If it's your favorite subject in school, what are the career prospects? Is there a personal experience that led you to want to study this? Again, try and be original in your communication, right? Now, just telling me I had the highest mark in French and that is why I'm going to go, study it at university really doesn't convince me that you actually want to study French. It just tells me that you're good at it in your school setting, right? It just tells me that, yeah, okay, in her school, she's probably scoring really well, but does she really want to do it? Is she going to kind of come here and then, if she's not the best, going to quit? Right? So just remember that, versus say like the second sentence that is, demonstrated in this example. What I most like about studying French is getting to grips with a new culture. I enjoy the challenge of trying to read French literature, listen to French songs, and watch French movies and plays in their original forms. Now, in this personal statement, the student goes on to actually mention the French literature that they read, the French songs that they listened to, and the French movies that they watched, which is basically verifying that you've done that. I mean, it's demonstrating to me that you know what you're talking about, right? And that convinces me. If they've taken the time and the effort to actually read French literature outside of their high school curriculum, they're listening to songs, they're watching French plays and movies, it tells me that, yeah, actually, I do believe that she wants to study French and that she's not going to come to my university and decide in a semester that she doesn't want to do this anymore. Okay, so why this course is important, and you need to kind of really think about this and not just write things like, I'm really good at it in school, or I have the highest mark in school, so I'm going to go pursue it. So academics. Now, of course, you need to demonstrate that you have the right academic caliber to study this particular program, and you have the right skills, and that you've done some kind of research above and beyond school that you have the academic ability. So one of the things that I always say is that if you're doing any kind of research which is in your curriculum, like if you're an IB student and you've written an extended essay, mention this in your personal statement, because this just shows that you've gone deep into a particular topic, and tells me that if you've enjoyed that you're likely going to like it at the university level, or if you're doing an EPQ for the A-level curriculum. Okay, now, if you don't have the EPQ or the extended essay, that's also fine. You don't have to have done research. I'm just saying that if you do have it, mention it here. And then you can talk about what kind of research you've done and how you've kind of, done that work. Now, again, if we look at this example, I have always loved numbers and solving problems, and have excelled at math competitions in school. Again, it's just telling me that you're doing well in maths in school. It's not telling me anything about any skills that you've developed or telling me why you like maths, okay? Whereas if you look at the second example that I give you, the precision of maths suits my nature. I like detail, understanding complex for information and the pleasurable challenge of problem solving. I applied to multiple competitions, and then they go on to tell me about the competition. So that demonstrates to me that you really are using your math to do something with it. You're able to, you have skill sets that are going to be desirable. Now, this sentence, for example, would work perfectly if you're applying for even economics, because economics is a very quantitative subject, or even engineering, because they're very quantitative. So if you have ability in mathematics, I know as an admissions team that, okay, this student is going to be able to cope with the academic rigor that this university has in maths if they want to, for engineering, because it's a very quantitative subject, or physics, or even economics, because essentially economics at university level is applied maths. Okay, so you can see the difference. I mean, it might not be very obvious here because, again, I have seen the rest of this personal statement, and they go on to then talk about how understanding complex information has kind of allowed them to dissect certain case studies and certain, won certain competitions. But it's a little bit more detailed rather than just saying, I like numbers and problem solving. Those are just catchphrases that people use that don't really tell me anything. Okay, so remember that connect things back. Like why is understanding complex information important if I want to study economics? Why is problem solving crucial if I'm going to eventually be a scientist, right? So just connect everything back to whatever major you're applying to using the skills that you've developed so far. Okay, so extracurricular activities, universities love to see that you're doing things outside the classroom. And what have you learned when you've done these extracurricular activities? And what skills have you learned from them? They're not necessarily interested in the activity per se. A lot of students will come and say to me that, oh, is research better, or working in an old age home? Or should I, should I do a passion project and do an engineering project? Or should I go to a summer school? It's not really what you do, but it's what you learn from what you do. I hope that makes sense. It's really about what skills you've developed and what has that taught you about yourself and helped you. All right, let's look at the second example here. You can read the first one on your own. Basketball was my favorite sport in school, and I played for my team for 6 years. What does that tell me about you? Nothing. It just tells me that you're dedicated, you like basketball, and that you've played for your school. It doesn't say anything. Versus the second sentence, as a keen basketball player, I was able to develop my team working skills as well as learn essential skills on how to cope with success and failure. This will benefit me as a science student, as a physics student at your university. Now that connects that I have learned through sport how to work as a team, how to kind of understand that I'm not going to win every time, and that it's okay, and that I can apply the same learnings in a science laboratory or in a classroom setting when I have to work in a group, if I'm an economics student, or a scientist if I'm applying for engineering or any of the life sciences. So bring it back. What skill have you learned through a particular activity? And what has that taught you? And it's not on here, but another one of my favorite ones is, especially students that are, looking to apply to medicine or any, any of nursing for that matter. Besides the grades, of course, that's crucial. They want to see that that you have the right values, that you have the right morals, that you're a compassionate person, that you're empathetic. Now, you cannot say that I'm empathetic. You can show that you're empathetic. How do you show that? Maybe you worked in an old age home. Maybe you've worked with students with disabilities. Maybe you've done some volunteering. Now that will show me that empathetic, compassionate side of you. And then that'll tell me that, okay, this girl or this boy is going to be a good medical student. So think about that. Now, work experience, again, if you have it, that's fantastic. That's going to demonstrate to me that you've really gone above and beyond to identify this particular area of interest, and that you're going to that you're definitely going to stick to this course. I mean, that's what work experience is about. If you haven't done work experience, don't worry about it. It's not an expectation. UK universities understand that not everybody has access to work experience, and that's absolutely okay. But if you do have it, again, try and talk about, what you did and how that kind of consolidated for you why you want to study that particular course, right? So let's look at the example that works here. In Germany, I gained a wide cultural linguistic understanding as well as a great love of Germany and her language. I worked in a primary school in Oberhausen where I taught groups of children independently and conducted lessons as well as assisted the teacher. I continue to converse on a daily basis with my Cologne-based friends through Skype. That shows me that this work experience that you had just kind of consolidated for you that you want to study German, or that German is something that is very important to you. Because you've gone there, you've had a great experience, you've come back and you're still continuing to do it. Versus just, telling me that you went to Germany and taught in a school and it helped your language skills. Do you see the difference? Again, that little bit of detail, that little bit of like personal touch will demonstrate to the admissions committees at these UK universities that you really do want to study that particular course, okay? So remember to be a little bit more personal when you're writing these things, and don't just use these sweeping sentences like I've improved my language skills, I've become better at teamwork, I have a high level of organization skills. Like, show me how you've done that. Don't just tell me that, okay? Now, core skills and your conclusion. So communicate your strengths, right? And at the end as well, the reader should have an understanding that that I kind of, at the beginning of the personal statement and the end should kind of have like a little, be like a loop. So I know that you're applying for a particular program and you can bring it back. So sometimes I see students who are talking about how they want to, say if they want to study psychology, they talk about a particular incident and they talk about how they want to, do research in a particular field of psychology. And at the end, they kind of tie it in with a particular organization in the UK that is doing this kind of research. So it kind of ties in. I know that it's one person. I know that there's some kind of continuity, and I know that there's a long-term goal. Okay. So look at this, again, another example of a student who started their personal statement like this. When I was 14, I witnessed my first operation, an appendix removal. Since that day, endeavored to experience veterinary practices as often as possible. Okay, so veterinary science, not necessarily medicine. And then it kind of comes back. I believe without doubt the veterinary profession is for me, and I look forward to the day that I perform my own appendix removal. So again, it ties in, right? You've kind of started off by something, and then you've demonstrated to me that you've got all these skills to become a veterinary scientist and that you're going to be a good student. And then, you tie in, you end the personal statement by saying that actually, eventually I'm going to be doing this myself. This is just one way of doing it. I'm just telling you to circle back. Now, the other thing is that as an international student, I do encourage you to talk a little bit about the UK. It doesn't have to be like paragraphs of, why you want to study in the UK. That's really not the point. You don't actually, in fact, don't do that. That's not going to work. But essentially, having an awareness that you're in a very global, country that has a lot more to offer than this university, and that you've thought about what you want to do above and beyond your degree will also demonstrate to me that you have actually thought of why you want to study in the UK. Now, again, this example that I put here isn't exactly my favorite, but I'll read it to you anyway. As an international student, I'm attracted to the UK's focus programs where I can specialize from an early stage. UK's state-of-the-art research opportunities in areas such as process intensification and computational chemical engineering will allow me to pursue my interest in optimizing processes. Now, this is a little generic. The other ones that I've seen actually go into very specific organizations in the UK or industries in the UK that are obviously excelling and doing well, and that eventually that they want to contribute to. So remember that, and kind of talk a little bit about the cultural benefit of being in a place like the United Kingdom and what you're going to benefit from that as well. So I just thought I'd share with you guys as well, the top overused sentences on UCAS. So ever since I was a kid, for the longest time ever, I come from a family of businessmen. I mean, okay, this has been published by UCAS. I just thought I'd share it here. But avoid kind of using these sentences to start. Avoid these statements. So I just thought I'd quickly share with you. I've always been passionate about, or medicine as a profession I've always looked upon. Avoid that. Again, because UCAS has been able to, if you do use one of these, you're just going to be one of the many. So, you want to stand out, have an impactful start. But again, don't stress too much about it. Just get writing, and then you can, of course, come back to it. Okay, so some more overused sentences here in the personal statement or as well. So yeah, for as long as I can remember, I've been interested in. Nursing is a profession I looked always upon. I'm an International Academy student. I've been studying since. So remember that. So quickly, just to kind of, end, this statement, have a clear narrative, stay clear of complex sentences. I know that you want to fit in a lot in these 4,000 characters, but, remember the reader has to follow what you're trying to say. So if you're going to say something like, while I did my extended essay on, the summation of polynomials, I did research on this topic and I learned this, and then I discovered that. By the time I come to the second part of the sentence, I've really lost what you're trying to tell me. Okay, so it's, just try and keep it direct. Talk about something and then connect it. You don't need to, they're not testing your flowery language here. It's really not, like I said, in literary analysis, it's really not it's a different style of writing. Remember, it's 4,000 characters. It's literally one side of A4, and you're really justifying to the universities that you are going to be a good fit for this particular program. Be concise, okay, with what you want to say. Now, if you've already told me that you've participated, or, that while I was doing my internship at, XYZ, you don't need to then say, while I was at XYZ, just omit that. You can say, in addition, I also learned, moreover, this taught me. Just stick to that. You don't need to keep reiterating the same thing, okay? And also just remember that, you need to have distinct paragraphs as well. Like I mentioned, the kind of layout at the beginning of this presentation. Just make sure that you have an introduction, you talk about your academics, extracurriculars, or work experience, and then like in a concluding paragraph. So 3 or 4 or 5 paragraphs is ample. Talk in the active voice and not the passive voice. So, I interned at a think tank over the summer and was awarded recognition, blah, 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 rather than saying, I believe I have these qualities. Don't talk in that voice, talk in an active voice. And again, you can see that review to see where a phrase can be substituted with a simple verb. I could not and still cannot believe that so many words and so many characters. I was astounded, right? Like, so there are so many resources online that can kind of help you could make words concise and, have a look at them. There's this reel that I actually have that, helps. It's a resume reel. And, I can share that with you. So what to avoid, don't drive yourself up the wall trying to start this personal statement. Like I said, I know I've said, don't use those overused statements, but don't waste time. Just start, and then you can always come back and revise. Avoid quotes and cliches, again, there are so many students who start with quotes. I mean, that's really not your words. Unless it's really paramount to why you want to study something, avoid it. Do not do it. Don't copy anyone else's personal statement. I mean, like I said, this is your own original work, and lots of universities, I mean, Priya can kind of back me here. They have plagiarism technology to check whether you've actually, used somebody else's work. And don't be general in your observations. I've already kind of demonstrated that through all the examples that I've been through. Give a little bit more detail. Tell me about the particular incident, so I know that you've actually been there and you've experienced it, and I can see that you've learned something from it, right? And again, the last part is, again, show, don't tell. I've been passionate about engineering since I was a child. I can make that statement. I can claim anything. I've been passionate about French. I've been passionate about German. I've been passionate about psychology. But if I talk about something that I've done to demonstrate that passion, that's going to be a lot more compelling, and it's going to be a lot more believable, right? And that's exactly what these admissions committees are looking for. Okay, so thank you so much for listening. I mean, that brings me to the end of my piece of the personal statement. Like I mentioned, please feel free to put lots of questions in the chat. We really want to answer your questions. We want to help you here. If it's a specific question about your personal statement, I'm happy to answer it. You have me for the next 25 minutes, so please put your questions in and we'll get to them really quickly. I'm going to hand it to Priya now, who's going to talk a little bit about the personal statement from a university perspective, and even the University of Essex.
Thank you so much, Namita. I am so happy that I was a part of this, because there were so many things that you mentioned, and a lot of times when I was a student, I wanted somebody to guide me about do's, don'ts, and all these specific things that you mentioned. So I'm very happy. And I am 110% sure that all the students who are here, they have made so many notes and they are going to revisit those notes and come back to you after they've, written a draft of their personal statement. So yeah, right. All right. So, taking over from Navita, my name is Priya Gidwani. As I mentioned, I work with the University of Essex. So I actually want you all to understand that the university would read each and every personal statement thoroughly, and I can vouch for it. So please do not, like Namita mentioned, do not take ideas from your friend's personal statement or from your cousin's personal statement or somebody who got shortlisted in the university. Do not use that particular rhythm or that particular idea to make your personal statement, because every single personal statement, every single sentence, every single paragraph that you have written, the university admissions team does go through it. And trust me when I say that there is printouts taken out, and they actually, before giving a decision, acceptance or decline, they read that personal statement thoroughly. So please make it with all your heart and do not take the idea from anybody, your friends, or somebody that has been shortlisted. Make it your own statement. It should be your own small autobiography, not exactly that, but a smaller version of your own life story, your own ambition. So make sure of that. Another thing that I'd like to mention here specifically is, in case you have a gap year, let's say after school, you took 1 year gap or 2 years gap because of a medical emergency, because of financial constraints, or because of any other reason regarding, in your family or any reason, make sure you categorically mention about it and mention the reason of how that particular phase has improved you as a personality, or what all things you learned. So it is very important that you mention that as well. Okay, so do not talk about it. Okay, you must talk about all these phrases in your life. Third point that I would want to mention here is that whatever your goal is, and let's assume that you are not from a similar background. Let's assume that you all, students who are aspiring to study in the UK have studied commerce related subjects or business related subjects in your school. Okay. And as of now, when you're applying for a bachelor degree, you want to pursue a completely different program. Let's say you want to do a program into script writing, or you want to do a program in filmmaking, or into sports, which is completely different from what you've studied. Please make sure to mention why. And your reason can be different. Okay, your reason does not have to be what your friend wrote or what somebody is telling you that will get you shortlisted. No, your reason has to be your own genuine reason. It can be as simple as, I watched that movie and I was so taken by that. It was so captivating. I heard the interview, and I was so taken in into understanding the process of filmmaking or writing or whichever field you're interested in. So make sure you put your heart in your personal statement. This is one thing that I'd like to mention. Another point quickly that I'll mention is, make sure that you write your own personal statement, because in case the university is taking your interview, or somebody from the department interacts with you before you accept the offer or before they make an offer to you, and in case the language is not what you usually use, right, it would create a little bit of concern. So make sure that even if you've improvised your SOP, even if you've taken Googles or use the synonyms or all of that, make sure you use it while you are giving your interview, or use it in your interaction, so that they do not have a conflict reading your statement of personal statement and interacting with you. It should be, for them, for the university, it should be like a same person, right? So make sure you write it, and make it as beautiful and put your heart in it. That's, something that I would say from the university side. Do not try to post about things that you haven't accomplished. It's all fine, but make sure you mention good things about your profile, whatever struggle you've seen, even if you scored average percentage, let's assume, that you have an average percentage in your 12th or 10th score, and now you are pursuing a bachelor's degree. Make sure that you mention what all are the other activities you're good at. Like Namita was mentioning about co-curricular activities, about other activities, about any particular phase that you've learned that made you learn a lot. For example, you supported your family in business, or worked as an intern in a startup, or anything that had given you a lot of experience. So make sure you mention about it. And yeah, so this is most of the points that I am talking about from the university's perspective. And obviously Namita and the Red Pen is there to support you. So make a draft and visit their office, and I'm sure you will get a lot of help. Now, what I'm going to do is I am sharing quickly some programs that we have with you all so that you have an idea. Give me a second. Okay. So I hope you are all seeing my screen. So this is the University of Essex, and we have a pretty big campus. It's a 200-acre campus. And all these are the programs, different programs that we have. These are, certain departments that you can get into at the University of Essex. So we have 21 departments, and all these programs that you can see on your screen right now. In case you are looking forward to get into literature and creative writing, University of Essex would have the program for you. Journalism, law, drama, acting, as I was again giving an example, film studies, human rights, sociology, psychology, all of that. These are a few programs that we offer. And nowadays, what I know is most of you are looking forward to pursue the programs which my generation could not pursue. And your family and your parents are very supportive about it, which is, this is how the world has developed and how the families are now supporting. So go ahead and pursue a program in criminology, in journalism, in nursing, in film studies, in acting, whichever you like. And this is a brief introduction and program introduction about what University of Essex offers. So in 2022 September intake, these were the new launches, just for your idea. So these are very good combinations, and we had a lot of applications and interest for these programs. So programs like BSc Politics with Data Science, so that we have new age politicians, BA Global Politics, BA Journalism and Film, LLB Law and Literature, BSc Artificial Intelligence. So all of you, whichever program you choose, are up to date. And by the time you start working on the work visa, and also, after 10 years, 6 years, when you are in the industry, you feel that your studies at the University of Essex are very much relevant and you're way ahead in the game. So this is University of Essex, and we have a lot of information about the university, but what I'm doing is I am just imparting this much information to all of you. Otherwise, you all would be very burdened with the knowledge that you have right now. But yeah, in case any of these programs are your interest, you can always get in touch with Namita from the Red Pen, and she can guide you of, how to apply at University of Essex. All right, so let me. Okay, let me just stop sharing this.
So thanks everyone for joining us today. Like I said, we're here for the next 15 minutes. If you have any questions about writing the personal statement, I can see a couple of people have typed things in and I've answered them. But if you have any questions, please put it in the chat and I'm happy to answer it live. Even if it's like a personal question about your personal statement and you have a question, I'd be more than happy to do that.
So Namita, while
Good
we are waiting
questions.
for
Yeah.
while we are waiting for the students to type in their questions, I actually have a very interesting question for you, and I'm really keen on receiving your answer.
Sure.
So, what made you choose education industry when you started 15, 16 years back? Why? And you are so passionate about it. So, why did you take that decision? And I'm sure it turned out really awesome. But what was that one moment, minute in your life that you wanted to switch and you wanted to help and you wanted to guide? What was that?
Okay, great question, Priya. I mean, just for the audience here, I actually studied molecular and cellular biochemistry at university. I did an integrated master's program in the UK. So 4 years after grade 12, and that's what I studied. And I absolutely love science, and I still do. But what I realized was that, doing research in a lab is quite an isolating profession. And while I loved it, I didn't think I wanted to spend, the rest of my life kind of working in a lab and being a postdoc and doing only research. And I moved to India like pretty much right after I finished my degree. And I realized that there's so much misinformation in the education space. And that at that same time was when, all the IB schools were kind of propping up in India. International education was kind of really upcoming here. And I was very lucky to be invited to a couple of schools to kind of share my experience about studying in the UK. What did you like? What did you do? How did you get into Oxford? What was your, what experience did you do? How did you manage your A levels, etc.? And that kind of introduced me to the education space. And I just realized how much I love interacting with students and sharing my experience and helping them through that decision making as well. I've been very fortunate and have lived in Hong Kong, which is a pretty global city. So, a lot of my friends went on to study in the US. I did end up going to a British boarding school. So I had that experience as well. So I did have a pretty strong understanding of, the global educational landscape. And what happened was that a principal of an IB school then asked me to join the counseling department of his school. And he said, can you please come? Can you set it up? And, I took it up as a challenge. I worked there for 3.5 years, learned a tremendous amount in those 3.5 years about international education, setting it up, speaking to students, introducing new concepts to the school. And I was very lucky that the school I worked at, B.D. Somani International School, invested in my professional development. I attended conferences and, met other higher educational professionals and learned a tremendous amount from them. Then kind of decided to do my own thing after I had my kids. And, I wanted to be a little bit more independent with my time. But, education is something that I'm very passionate about. And I feel that, one of our kind of vision at the Red Pen is to transform access to information. So ensuring that you're making the right decision based on everything that you should have the information before you make the decision. And that's kind of why, I'm doing these information sessions, and I'm always going to continue to share as much information as I can. In fact, my business partner, Kim Dixit, has written a book on the US admissions process. And we tell a lot of students, if you read that end-to-end and follow the instructions, you can pretty much do it on your own, right?
Yes, I remember you gifted that to me, and it is very brilliantly written. Every single step that you have to take care of is very brilliantly explained.
So Priya, we have some questions. I'm just going to read them out loud, and I'm going to address them loud rather than type them up. Okay, so somebody's asking, let's say I have a vision for what I want to do, but it is very remotely related to what qualification I am trying to achieve. Okay, so Parth, for this particular situation, I think for the moment, you really need to talk about, what you're applying for and how that's going to help you in the short term, right? I mean, if you're going to say something like, I want to study business and then eventually join my family business or do something else, that's fine. But, if you can elaborate a little bit more, I can kind of help you here, but I'm not sure what you mean. But obviously that initial degree, okay, you can also talk about how that degree that you want to study is going to give you certain skills to then do your whatever you have planned for the long term. You can connect it that way. And that's absolutely fine as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it good to include links to justify their reasons to showcase whatever they claim on their CV or SFA? You don't need to do that. I mean, if you're talking about, any projects that you've done or any research that you've done, here's a really good way to do this, is that ensure that your recommender is aware of what you've done. So say, for example, you're talking about, okay, I worked with a postdoc at Stanford University and I did this research project and I even did this online course. Again, you cannot send them links to show that you've actually done that. What I would suggest you do is to go speak to your school counselor or speak to any teacher that's writing you the letter of recommendation and get them to include that in the letter of recommendation. The minute they include that in the letter of recommendation, it's almost like verified. Don't really want to talk about verification right now with all the Twitter madness, but you know what I mean, that if the school counselor or recommender is going to talk about also something that you've done, and that is why the LOR is also very important. In fact, when we come to US admissions, the recommenders, the university's admissions team have even told us that whatever the recommender kind of says that you've done is what we really believe you've done. So it's really worth your time informing the recommender about all the things that you've done. And if they've written about that in the LOR and you've mentioned it in the personal statement, that's absolutely good enough. Your recommender might ask you for proof. When I was a school counselor, I did. Students would say, I've done this 2-week internship and I've done that. I said, well, give me the email address of your mentor and I'm going to check if you've actually done that. And I would cross-check. So yeah. Also, is it important to include ties to home country and how the degree course would help me when I get back? So you don't really need to do that for now. I mean, I think just focus on the fact that for 2 years after you finish your degree in the UK, you can stay in the UK and you can work. You don't necessarily need to talk about your home country for now. Eventually, you can, of course, do what you want and you're not kind of going to be held against it. But just focus on how you think the UK as a country is going to benefit you and how you intend to use that degree, after you graduate. So yeah. Anything else you have to add for these 2 questions, Priya? Thank you. Those are great questions. Thank you, Parth. Thank you, Cecilia. Those were really great questions. Any more questions, please feel free to put them in the chat and I'm happy to answer them.
I think, Namita, you've answered everything very elaborately for all the students. And yeah, I mean, Parth, for you, if your qualification is not like I was saying, that in case you want to dive into something else, completely different field, you need to mention the reasons for that. And whichever program you are willing to apply for, you need to basically, like Namita also mentioned, figure out what are the skills that you are supposed to learn from that course, right? So that should be very clear in your personal statement. And accordingly, if your personal statement speaks volume about your passion into that particular department and what is it that you're expecting out of that course, how clear you are of the skills that you are expecting from that course, and is it really, happening in that course, or you're just thinking out loud. So all of that, it has to be very crystal clear, and then eventually the admission team will go through it, and then the decision would be made. So that is how it is. Again, the thing is, this is you don't need to feel the burden to be from the same subject line or from the same qualification, but you have to have reasons of diving into something else. If your reasons are genuine enough and you've done research in that particular field, then of course, you can write about it, you can mention why and when and how, all of that. But please do not, my advice will be that do not look at your friends or your family and, think that, okay, that field is very lucrative, because this should not be your reason. Your reason should be your passion and your experiences, all of that, right?
Great. Thanks, Priya. There's one more question. It says, so can we mention the post-study work opportunity in the personal statement? Yes, you can absolutely do so. I mean, the idea is that you're going to be, finishing your degree and then hopefully, well, you can stay on to work for 2 years. It's, you're allowed to, and you should rather, I mean, well, not should, but you have that opportunity. So you can definitely speak about that. In fact, a lot of personal statements that I've worked on have had students speak about specific companies or groups of companies that they do want to eventually work for after they finish that particular degree. And how the route of, say, studying pharmacy will get them to Glaxo or whatever it is, right? So certainly do that. It just makes again the admissions committee understand that you're thinking long term and that you do know what options you have after you finish. Thank you so much, Cecilia. That's really kind of you. Again, we have another 6 more minutes. So if there's any more questions, please feel free. We're more than happy to answer them. Okay, well, thank you all for joining. We're going to end early today. We will send you a post summary email. This recording will be available on YouTube, so you can access it when you want. And we will also, send you some content to help you write the personal statement. And if you really need any support, if you want me to help edit it, there's a way you guys can work with us at the Red Pen. Thank you, Priya, for your time.
Thank you so much, Namita. Pleasure being a part of this. And thank you, everyone, all the students who were there.
Okay, Priya, I think we got one more question. So we do have 5 minutes, so let's answer it. Any tips for people applying for dual majors? Why don't you answer that, Priya, from a university perspective?
Okay, so when we talk about dual majors, so for example, you're applying for BSc Politics with Data Science at the University of Essex. First of all, we want you to understand what all are the modules that you're going to study. So please do not assume the modules. Do not assume that, okay, I will become a politician and I will also get into data sciences, because the modules, those modules would be entirely different from a BSc data science. Okay, so please make sure that you read the modules, go through the modules, read the details, the subject, the paragraph. And secondly, most important is that your vision should be very clear. Why not just a BA political science, and why a BSc political science with data science? So just giving you an example, your vision, your reason should be very clear. So obviously, Namita and I are there to help you curate your vision and understand how this program is different than the other one. But this is what we expect as a university, that you should have that clarity when you choose a combination, two combinations in one program. So that is very important.
I'm just going to add to that. I mean, it's like, a lot of programs in the UK are, say, something like, a modern language in politics or modern language in history. And, just saying that I like German and history, and therefore I want to study German and history, is probably not effective. Think about what your long-term goal is and connect how, if you have a degree in German and in history, you're going to be able to achieve that long-term goal. It's like, if I want to work in the UN and work in public policy eventually, understanding history, and then eventually being able to understand a European and going in depth into a European language, that's going to kind of guide me, right? So I think it's really important that you address it, from that perspective, rather than like, I'm applying for German, I'm applying for like history and politics because I like history and I like politics, I'm just going to do this. Yeah. So exactly what Priya was trying to say, like, try and think of a long-term goal, think of what, both the degree programs, what skills are they going to give you to kind of achieve something larger? And that's the difference, right? For the kid who's going to get into that competitive data science and, public policy program versus someone who's just going to kind of not. Okay, and they will consider that. In fact, I'll tell you a story. There was a student of mine that applied to the University of Oxford for philosophy and mathematics. Now, she was so good at maths that when she went for her interview, in fact, the admissions committee turned around and said to her that, we can offer you a degree, we can offer you like a place in the pure maths program, but not for maths and philosophy, because you've not really justified why you're going to be a strong philosophy student. Okay, so that doesn't happen. It's very rare. Typically, they would just make your application unsuccessful. But I'm saying is, if you're applying for maths and philosophy, you do need to have an understanding of philosophy as well. Another very common, well, not common, but a very sought after major is PPE, politics, philosophy, and economics. You cannot ignore the philosophy in that combination. So many students will have tons to say about economics, tons to say about politics, and then ask them about philosophy, and they won't even know what it is, right? Yeah. Don't apply for that program then if you're not sure. In fact, most universities expect you to do all three in the first year, and then you can specialize later. So one whole year of university, a third of your subject cannot just be ignored. They might, of course, if you haven't done it at A-level or IB or the curriculum that you're studying, that's fine. But do the research, understand what that program entails, and then apply for it and see how that kind of connects with your long-term goal as well. Okay, you cannot just ignore one out of the three subjects you're applying for. Yeah, correct. I think most of the questions have been answered, but we'll still check. I think they have. I think we've answered the questions, and we're done just on time. So thank you everyone for joining us today. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Priya, as well, for collaborating with the Red Pen to do this. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Namita. My pleasure. And like I said, you'll get a summary email from us. And if you want to contact me or Priya, you'll see that you can. So have a good evening, everyone. And if you're in another place, in another part of the world, good day or good morning to you. Bye, everyone.